A scribe dips a reed pen into black ink, crushed from soot and water. He sits in a stone room, the air cold against his shoulders, scattered across the pages by different English translation committees. But if you strip away the English veil, the flat landscape shatters. He writes, "O Lord, our Lord, how majestic is your name in all the earth." Look at the English translation closely. The first word is Lord in small capital letters. That is YHWH. The second word is Lord in standard lowercase letters. The word hiding behind those lowercase letters is the Hebrew Adonai. Its root is Adon. It means master. It means owner. It means sovereign. It appears over 400 times in the Old Testament. But the context of this word is distinctly domestic. An Adon is the head of an ancient household. He is the master of the estate. He owns the property. He feeds the servants. He holds the heavy iron keys to the storehouses. He dictates the schedule. He protects the gates. He is the one who ensures the granaries are full before the winter frost hits the ground. Adonai is not a distant cosmic architect. It is the master of the house. When David writes, "Eha, our Adonai," he is making a massive, grounding claim. The breath of the universe is also the owner of the estate. God is not just the God of the wilderness. He is the owner of the city. He holds the title deed to the land. The people are not just citizens. They are household staff. They are guests at the table. They eat from the master's fields. They sleep under the master's roof. This shift changes the entire relationship. The eye glides over the English word God without catching. But the ancient listener would have heard a sudden, jarring shift in the rhythm of the scroll. The plural majesty of Elohim creates the world. The breathing intimacy of YHWH gives life. The rugged strength of El Shaddai sustains the wanderer, but Adonai demands allegiance. You do not just worship Adonai. You work for him. You manage his fields. You obey his household rules. Isaiah sees a vision of a throne room shaking. Smoke fills the air. The stone foundations tremble. And he does not cry out to Elohim. He does not call upon El Shaddai. He cries out to Adonai. The master is seated in his house. But these names are not just scattered randomly through the centuries. They are building toward a specific collision. There is a precise moment where the entire system locks together. A moment where the burning sand meets the divine name in a way that alters human history entirely. A shepherd drives a flock of sheep across the jagged rocks of the Midianite desert. The sun beats heavily on the back of his neck. The air is thick with the dry, suffocating scent of brittle sagebrush and baked clay. He sees a bush burning. It is engulfed in violent, roaring flames. But the branches do not snap. The leaves do not turn black. The wood does not collapse into ash. He steps closer. He takes off his leather sandals. The desert floor is rough and burning against his bare heels. If you look at the raw Hebrew text hiding beneath the ink, you realize the ancient authors were doing something completely alien to our modern reading habits. A voice speaks from the center of the fire. Moses is terrified. He is being sent back to Egypt, back to the most heavily fortified empire on the planet, to demand the release of an entire enslaved population. He asks a highly logical question. He says, "When I go to the Israelites and they ask me who sent me, what is your name? What do I tell them?" The voice in the flame does not give a title. It gives a continuous verb. Ehe Asher Ehe, I am who I am. And then, just a few chapters later, in Exodus chapter 6, God says something to Moses that has confused readers for centuries. The voice says, "I am YHWH. I appeared to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob as El Shaddai. But by my name, YHWH, I did not make myself fully known to them." For modern readers, this feels like an impossible statement. If you read the book of Genesis, Abraham uses the name YHWH. Isaac uses it. Jacob uses it. It is written all over their stories. So how can the voice in the burning bush claim they did not know it? This is not a historical contradiction. It is a profound theological shift. To the ancient patriarchs, the divine presence was fundamentally experienced as El Shaddai, the God of the mountain. The names are not labels, they are geography. Every time the original writers switch from one name to another, they are shifting the camera angle. The one who provided water in the desolate sand, who gave a child to a barren womb, who sustained a fragile family wandering through hostile territory. They knew the 4 letters of the Tetragrammaton. They spoke the syllables aloud, but they only knew the name as a personal, familial promise. They knew the syllables of the word, but they had never felt the weight of the hammer. Moses is about to experience something entirely different. He is not going to experience the God who merely provides for a wandering tent. He is going to experience the God who completely dismantles an empire. He is going to watch the Nile River choke with blood. He is going to hear the deafening crack of the Red Sea splitting in half. He is going to see the infinite, cosmic power of Elohim weaponized to keep the intimate, breathing covenant of YHWH. The burning bush is the pivot point of the entire biblical narrative. It is the exact moment where the God of the cosmos, the God of the dirt, and the God of the mountain completely merge into a single, unstoppable force. But the ancient writers did not just stop at this convergence. They took this complex vocabulary of names and began to carefully weave them together. And when you pull back to look at how these specific titles, they are telling you precisely what kind of room you just walked into. They are signaling whether you are standing in a cosmic courtroom, a dusty tent, are layered across the rest of the Hebrew Bible. A breathtaking hidden architecture begins to emerge in the text. The text is not random. The ink is intentional. When you look across the entire Hebrew Bible, you do not see a careless blending of titles. You see a highly engineered system. The ancient writers are building a theological architecture. They are using the names as structural pillars. Look at the Book of Psalms. It is a massive collection of ancient poetry. It is divided into 5 distinct books. And when scholars count the names of God in these sections, a startling pattern emerges from the data. Book 1 is filled with the name YHWH. It appears 273 times. The intimate, breathing, covenant name floods the pages. Elohim appears just 15 times. But turn the heavy parchment scroll to Book 2. The pattern completely reverses. YHWH drops away. Elohim spikes. The name Elohim is used 164 times, while YHWH barely appears 30 times. The shift is violent. It is immediate. This is not a stylistic accident. It is a theological diagnosis. Book 1 was composed when the nation was secure. David is on the throne. The city of Jerusalem is standing. You can smell the heavy smoke of burning frankincense drifting from the bronze altar. You can hear the rhythmic chanting of the priests in the courtyard. The people feel close to the divine. They feel the breath. They use the name YHWH. But Book 2 reflects a different era, a blazing mountain, or the intimate quiet of a living room. To see the actual architecture of the Bible, you have to step past the English translation. The nation is fracturing. Enemies are surrounding the gates. The people are being dragged into exile. They sit in the suffocating heat of Babylon. They feel the cold, unyielding stone of foreign prisons against their backs. The intimate breath of God feels entirely absent. So their vocabulary changes. They cry out to Elohim. They appeal to the distant, cosmic judge. They beg the architect of the universe to step into human history and enforce strict justice against the empires crushing them. The prophets do the exact same thing. Amos looks at a corrupt, wealthy society exploiting the poor. He does not use El Shaddai. He uses Adonai. He uses it constantly. He reminds the corrupt leaders that the true master is returning to inspect his house. Job sits in the ashes of his ruined life. He drags a jagged piece of broken pottery across his diseased skin. He does not use YHWH. He does not feel the intimate breath. He uses El Shaddai. He uses it 31 times. The God of the mountain is crushing him, and he cannot move the stone. The names are a map of the human soul. Every time the authors switch the name, they are telling you exactly what the characters are experiencing. They are marking the distance between the human heart and the divine reality. But this entire architecture builds toward one final, unifying truth. A truth that takes the plural majesty, the intimate breath, the mountain's strength, and the master's authority, and fuses them together. And look at the specific words they carved into the text. The place to start is the very first sentence ever written. A voice speaks into the dark, and Elohim shapes the massive oceans. A breath is exhaled into the wet dirt, and YHWH gives life to a fragile soul. A nomad walks through a barren desert, and El Shaddai becomes the immovable rock under his feet. A king looks at the glittering sky, and Adonai takes the title deed to the house. A prophet demands justice for the poor, and the master returns to inspect his estate. A broken man scrapes his skin with broken pottery, and the God of the mountain meets him in the ash. A shepherd stands barefoot before a burning bush, and the creator of the stars merges with the breath in the lungs to break an empire. Different names, one thread, one God. But maybe the part that stays with me most is the dirt. Genesis chapter 2. The image of the infinite, plural majesty of the cosmos, collapsing down into a single pair of lungs. Not a God who simply dictates commands from the cold distance of the stars. A God who gets mud on his hands. It is the most famous opening line in human history. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. A God who stoops down and presses his face against the wet clay just to share his breath. If you are in a season where the divine feels distant, cold, or strictly administrative, Genesis 2 is a place to sit. If you feel like you are just a number in a cosmic courtroom being weighed on a bronze scale, the shift in the Hebrew text is a lifeline. He is not just an Elohim who manages the galaxies. He is a YHWH who breathes. The one who built the tectonic plates is the exact same one kneeling in the dirt of your specific situation. If this opens something up for you, subscribe, leave a comment. Even one word helps. Share this with someone who feels like God is just a distant title right now. Pray for us as we keep digging into these texts. And may the God who has never once abandoned the dust walk with you through yours and breathe something new into the dirt you are standing on. It sounds simple. It sounds majestic. But the Hebrew word hiding behind that English translation holds a mathematical impossibility. It contains a grammatical glitch, sitting right there in the first verse of the universe. Hiding in plain sight. A heavy animal skin scroll unrolled on a wooden table in front of him. He reads the Hebrew characters. He stops. His hand hovers over the parchment. The grammatical glitch in Genesis 1:1 is something you cannot see in English, but it hits the ear of an ancient Hebrew listener like a loud, dissonant chord. Genesis chapter 1, verse 1. The cosmos is a dark, churning ocean of chaos. A voice speaks, and light tears through the blackness. The text tells us that, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The word translated as God here is the Hebrew Elohim. It is the very first title for the divine introduced in the text. And its architecture is entirely unexpected. The root word is El, a common ancient Near Eastern term meaning power, might, or deity. But the ending of the word, the I am suffix, is a grammatical plural marker. It operates exactly like adding an S to the end of an English noun. You hear that same vibration in the back of the throat in words like cherubim or seraphim, literally translated. The noun, Elohim, means gods, but the verb sitting immediately next to it in the sentence, bara, the word for created, is strictly singular. He created, plural noun, singular verb. It sounds as jarring as saying, the oceans is deep, or the mountains is tall. Linguists and ancient Near Eastern scholars call this the plural of majesty, or the plural of intensity. He refuses to say the word he is about to write. Instead, he places a different word in the margins. He builds a fence around a name. In the ancient biblical world, a plural ending was not exclusively used to count a multitude of objects. It was frequently used to describe a singular thing that was so vast, so boundless, and so overwhelming that a singular noun simply could not hold its weight within its borders. You see the exact same grammatical mechanism used for the Hebrew word for water, mayim, or the word for the heavens, shemayim. Elohim is not a headcount of deities. It is a concentration of absolute power. When the author of Genesis uses Elohim, they are positioning the camera at the furthest possible distance. They are showing you the transcendent architect of the universe. This is the divine force, standing outside of time and matter. This is the God who spins galaxies into motion, who commands light to exist with a single vibration of sound, who categorizes the dark oceans and shapes the jagged tectonic plates. For an entire chapter, 31 verses of rhythmic, sweeping poetry. This is the only name you hear. Elohim speaks. Elohim separates. Elohim categorizes. It is cold, massive, and entirely awe-inspiring. But as you cross the threshold from Genesis 1 into Genesis 2, the scale dramatically collapses. The cosmic lens shatters. The camera plummets down from the heavens straight into the damp soil of a garden. And a completely new name is whispered into the dirt. For thousands of years, Jewish copyists did exactly the same thing. Again and again, a boundary around the divine. A careful, deliberate substitution. The cosmic void is gone. The dirt is wet. A mist rises from the soil. Mud clings to divine hands. He is not speaking from a distance. He is kneeling in the clay. God forms a man. He bends down. He puts his mouth to the dust. He exhales. A chest rise. Lungs inflate. Blood moves. Eyes open. The clay becomes a living soul. This is Genesis chapter 2. And exactly here, in verse 4, the author introduces a brand new word. You look at your English translation. You see the word Lord, but it looks different. The L is capitalized. The ORD are printed in smaller capital letters. The small caps are not a font choice. They are a translation compromise. They are the English Committee's way of marking the most sacred, intimate name in the Hebrew language. Beneath those small capital letters are 4 Hebrew consonants. Yod He Vav He. This is the Tetragrammaton, the sacred name. This is the word the scribe refuses to speak aloud. It comes from the Hebrew root verb haya, to be, to exist, to become. The letters are Yod He Vav He. 4 consonants. No vowels. It is unpronounceable by design. We say Yahweh. We say Jehovah. But the original pronunciation is buried in the sand. The ancient Jewish people protected it so fiercely they stopped saying it entirely. But linguists point out something breathtaking about the physical letters themselves. A dance between the ink drying on the skin and the breath moving through their lungs. You hold a modern English translation of this text in your hands. They are aspirated consonants. You do not use your lips to say them. You do not use your tongue. You only use your breath. Inhale, exhale. Yod He, Vav He, Vav He. It is the first sound a newborn baby makes. It is the last sound a dying man makes before the room goes cold. YHWH is not a distant title. It is the rhythm of human survival. In Genesis 1, Elohim creates the universe with his voice. But in Genesis 2, YHWH creates a human being with his lungs. The text deliberately pairs them together. UHWH, Elohim, the Lord God. The author forces 2 completely different scales into a single frame. The boundless, infinite architect of the cosmos is also the kneeling, breath-giving presence in the dirt. The plural of majesty meets the sound of a lung filling with air. The distant creator is now the intimate gardener. But this shift in names is not just a poetic detail confined to the first 2 chapters. As the story expands, the writers begin to weaponize these 2 names. And when you track exactly where Elohim appears and exactly where YHWH is used, You realize they are building a massive theological collision. For centuries, modern scholars read the opening chapters of Genesis and saw a fractured text. They assumed two different authors, living in two different eras, simply pasted their independent creation accounts together on a single heavy scroll. One author exclusively preferred the title Elohim. The other exclusively preferred the name YHWH. The binding is smooth. The thin, crisp pages rustle quietly as you turn them. And as you read, you see a flat, continuous landscape. They looked at the shifting vocabulary and saw a clumsy collision of documents. But ancient Jewish rabbis saw something entirely different. They recognized a deliberate, highly sophisticated literary architecture at work beneath the ink. The alternating names are not evidence of a sloppy editor. They are the coordinates of a theological map. When the ancient Hebrew writers want to describe the divine dealing with humanity on a global, universal, or strictly legal scale, they deploy the name Elohim. It is the language of strict justice and immutable law. It is the unbending ruler of nations, the force that weighs the cosmos on a bronze scale and judges the violent, churning floodwaters. When a foreign king or a pagan sailor speaks of the divine in the biblical text, his mouth almost always forms the word Elohim. They recognize the vast, terrifying power, but they do not know the person. But when the text wants to describe grace, it's spotting. Unfinded is the redded, and deep personal intervention. It pivots immediately to YHWH. It is the name of mercy. It is the presence that walks through the garden. In the cool of the evening, the one who stitches animal skins together to cover human shame. The one who sits in the dust of the desert and makes impossible promises to broken families. If something about this literary architecture is stirring up questions you've never considered, you open the book of Genesis, turn to the Psalms, flip to the prophets, and you see the same three letters printed in black ink. God, you're exactly who this channel is for. Drop a thought in the comments and hit subscribe. Because every week we go deeper into the text than you knew was possible. So the Hebrew text holds these two massive realities in a fragile constant tension. The ancient reader is meant to understand that the boundless architect of the stars and the breathing, merciful gardener are the exact same entity. Justice and mercy, power and presence, Elohim and YHWH, braided together into a single narrative thread. But as the story moves out of the garden and into the brutal, unforgiving terrain of the ancient Near East, the early patriarchs need something else entirely. They are wandering through hostile territory, surrounded by famine and warlords, sleeping on the cold ground under a massive, empty sky. They need an anchor, and to provide it, the text introduces a name carved directly out of the rock. Abram is 99 years old. The desert wind is dry, stinging his wrinkled skin with coarse sand. His body is frail, and his joints ache in the deep, biting cold of the desert night. He is childless. He is a wandering nomad. The ancient promise that he would father a massive nation feels like a cruel, fading joke echoing off the barren red cliffs. Sometimes you see the word Lord. Sometimes, if you look closely, you see Lord printed in strange, small capital letters. This is Genesis, chapter 17. Verse 1. God appears to this broken, aging man in the dust, and he introduces himself with a completely new title. I am God Almighty. Your English translation reads, the Hebrew is El Shaddai. El is the ancient word for power, the base of Elohim. But Shaddai is a word shrouded in ancient, rugged mystery. It appears 48 times in the Old Testament, mostly buried in the oldest, most primal poetry of the patriarchal narratives and the Book of Job. For centuries, English translators simply defaulted to Almighty. But ancient Near Eastern linguists point to the Akkadian root word shaju. It translates to mountain. El Shaddai is not a generic badge of omnipotence. It is the God of the mountain, When God speaks this name to Abram, he is drawing on the physical landscape around them. He is anchoring his identity in the most permanent, unyielding object the human eye can see. The mountain does not move when the violent storm hits. The mountain does not shift when the desert wind howls. The mountain remains. Abram is shaking. Abram is fragile. But the God standing in front of him is stone. Other Hebrew scholars trace the root to shad, the ancient Hebrew word for breast, translating the title as the all-sufficient one. It is the imagery of a mother nursing a child. Most people assume these are just stylistic choices. You probably think it is just a handful of generic labels for the exact same entity, the one who nourishes and sustains life in a completely barren place. It is a striking, deeply intimate metaphor of divine provision. And yet, both ancient roots carry the exact same gravitational pull, immovable strength, and life-giving sustenance. To the wandering patriarchs Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob El Shaddai was the anchor. It was the name that kept them walking through brutal famine and hostile borders. It was the presence that provided when the ground produced absolutely nothing. For a nomadic family living in canvas tents, the God of the mountain was enough to survive the wilderness. But survival is not a permanent residence. When the descendants of Abram finally cross the river, when they settle the promised land, when they build sprawling cities and sit safely in stone houses, the desert vocabulary shifts. The wilderness gives way to a settled kingdom, and a very different title begins to echo through the halls of the temple. The canvas tents are packed away. The tribes settle. They build stone walls. They carve cedar beams. They forge heavy bronze hinges. The nation of Israel is no longer a band of wandering nomads. They are a kingdom, and a new title takes center stage. You see it most clearly in the poetry of King David. Psalm chapter 8, verse 1. David looks at the vast, glittering expanse of the night sky